Day, where we do have a special presentation. And at this time, I would like to recognize Councilmember Ed Reyes. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning. Buenos días a todos. Councilor Padilla would have been joining me today, but he's doing his work in Sacramento. But members of the council, today, it gives me great pleasure to welcome one of the true Dodger icons who we invited here to celebrate his 35th year with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Members, let's welcome Mr. Manny Mota. You know, for many of us, when we think of Manny Mota, we think of great stars like Roberto Clemente, Willie Davis, Sandy Koufax. This is the golden era of Dodgers as they came to Los Angeles. And for me, Manny has been one of those pillars, not only for the Dodgers, but for the Latino community, the Spanish-speaking world in this Western Hemisphere. When you talk about the levels that he reached, the heights in his baseball achievements. After having been selected as the first player during the 1968 expansion draft by the Montreal Expos, Manny came to Los Angeles to begin his playing career with the Dodgers that spans parts of 13 years, going from 1969 to 1980 and 1982. As a Dodger coach since 1980, today Manny continues to make history as having had the longest tenure as a Dodger coach, which speaks volumes of his ability as a teacher. Now, if we understand Dodgers today and baseball in general, you know that baseball is an international sport. You get many folks from many Spanish-speaking countries playing now in the National League. Over the years, he has participated in 5 World Series with the Dodgers as both a player and a coach. He has a lifetime batting average of .304 and was the all-time pinch hit leader up until 3 years ago. His lifetime career pinch hitting is .319 and ranks 7th of all time. Members of the council, this man deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And I'll say it again, this man deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And let's give him a round of applause. You know, I just think it's wrong that he's not in there. But let's hope, as he says, God will provide his destiny, and we know it's coming. But members, we are truly honored to have him here today, because beyond his numbers, he has given so much to Los Angeles community and to his homeland of the Dominican Republic. Through the Manny Mota International Foundation, he and his wife, Margarita, have raised money to build a medical clinic, baseball fields, schools, in the Dominican Republic, while also offering scholarships to youth who otherwise would be left out without resources. The mission of the Manny Mota International Foundation is to provide educational, health, recreational opportunities for the underprivileged, especially disadvantaged youth, using the Manny Mota baseball clinics as a bridge or platform to teach our youth to build healthy bodies and minds through positive role models and teach self-discipline through sports, as well as to provide communities with the tools necessary for improvement and self-reliance. And I can tell you, folks, he's been in Lincoln Heights, in Lincoln Park, Montecito Heights. This Saturday he's going to be in Bishop's Canyon. And for me, what's real special, and sometimes it's hard to grasp unless you live in those communities that speak Spanish, when you see a person like Manny Mota, the stature that he has, speaking eloquent Spanish, connecting in a manner that makes people feel good about who they are and what they can achieve, there are tremendous bridges being built for their futures. And it's a role model that is just hard to put into words. And with that, I'd like to present Manny Mota a resolution signed by all the council members. We have all the whereases here. But the bottom line is that he's here with us today. He has committed himself to the community, and we want to honor him for his 35 years of service being part of the Dodger family. Thank you, Mr. Mota.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Let me recognize Councilmember Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes, for acknowledging Manny Mota. have to tell you, I was only in office a few months when Mr. Mota came to visit me and talk to me about a program in my district that his son was organizing. It runs in the family, their commitment to community, their commitment to the city. And I still have, he gave me a little baseball that I have and will keep for my now 1-year-old. And he will be able to say he has a baseball from Manny Mota. But I just wanted to stand up and say thank you, that not only does Ed have the pleasure of having Dodger Stadium in his district, but I have the pleasure of Manny Mota and all of his efforts in my community in the Sun Valley area and that Sunlantunga area. He has really demonstrated his commitment here and has brought so many things to his country. He has worked closely here with bringing aid and relief, and I just want to acknowledge you and for your many years of service. And as far as we're concerned, you're a family member of the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you, Wendy.
Mr. Villaraigosa.
I'd like to ask the family who likes to join us. Come on up. Yeah, Margarita, his daughter, all his family, come on up. This gentleman has a tremendous family. I just want to make sure they are part of this as well. And the Dodger organization, we have some great reps from the Dodger family. Come on up. Come on, Tien.
All right, and Mr. Villaraigosa?
Joe?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Reyes, for bringing the great Manny Mota to the council chambers today. When I say the great Manny Mota, and when Councilmember Reyes talked about Hall of Fame, Manny Mota is not just a Hall of Fame baseball player, a man who should be in that Hall of Fame, but he's a Hall of Fame individual as well. A great human being, a great ambassador for baseball, a great ambassador for all those young kids in the Dominican Republic and Latin America, in fact, in the cities throughout the country, who dream of playing baseball and look to him. A great human being, a great baseball player, a man that was so great at his craft, he's one of the few that can teach that craft to others. Because as we know, trying to teach someone else how to swing a baseball bat isn't the easiest thing to do. He's done a great job at that, but most importantly, what we know him and love him for is what a great human being he is. Thank you for coming today.
Mr. LaBonge.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Yeah, right here, Eric. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, you see? He did not learn from Manny Mota. Yeah, let's try. All right, good job, Eric. Anyway, Manny Mota, great to see you. I know she was trying to get Janice on there, Eric. That wasn't good. I didn't like that. But Manny, thank you for all what you do in your foundation. And as Councilman Villaraigosa spoke, a Hall of Famer in the community. So much you've done to create opportunity for people in the Dominican and here in Los Angeles and cities throughout the country. But I think what's so important about a person, yes, there are those who kind of are expected to get home runs all the time when they get up there. But Manny Mota, when he played, he was the greatest pitch hitter of all time, which is a great feat. How many of us here, and I'm standing, but I'm just going to sit down, how many could stand up and guarantee they're going to get a hit? Only one guy, Manny Mota, because he did that for the Dodgers. And I had the great pleasure of being there one day, and I think it was a Sunday, playing the Pittsburgh Pirates. The great Willie Davis from Roosevelt High School had an inside the ballpark home run. How often do you see that? How many? Raise your hand if you ever seen inside the park home run. You saw one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, how many of you seen it twice in a day with the great Manny Mota? Only me and Manny Mota saw it. Because we were in the ballpark that day as they beat the Pittsburgh Pirates. But you're a great human being. And Ed, it's great to have you. Ed, you're a great champion for the Dodgers, which is so important. Because in our city, we do need great arts, great humanities, sports, our great universities, our great college, our great professional teams. And the Dodgers sure are a great professional team, not only on the field where we hope they're in first place at the All-Star break, but also in the community where they've always been #1. So congratulations, Manny Mota, for all that you do and your beautiful family. We've got to do more, and we will do more. And I just want to thank you. And it was a great day to be in a stadium because an inside the park home run is how many? Let me ask you a question. Anybody ever see anyone steal home? I saw Bobby Bonds. You and I were at the same game. Bobby Bonds stole home on you guys when Bobby was playing for the Giants years ago. God rest his memory. Manny Mota, thank you so much. Baseball is a great game because it's in every community, not just in America, but around much of the world. Thank you very much. Let's hear it for Manny Mota.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And, you know, Manny Mota, I had the joy, like some folks around here, of tossing out a first pitch. And it was the same night that Manny was there and he came up and asked him advice, which I should ask him today, clearly. But he said, everybody tries to always throw it too hard, just throw it right over the plate. It's exactly what happened. I thank you for that, Manny. Growing up in Los Angeles as a baseball player, it was amazing to see you, to be inspired by you, and now as an adult to see what you're doing in our communities, because baseball is so much more than a sport. It's a way of teaching leadership. It's a way of involving kids and actually being able to interact with one another. And it's a way of giving people an idea of goals that they can strive for. I know you've been a friend to my family for many years, and I appreciate that friendship and appreciate the impact that you're having on the people that I represent in the district just next to Dodger Stadium, and I want to thank Mr. Reyes for bringing you here today. So in the future, too, I know that Manny Mota and the academies that you have will touch so many more people's young lives, and your family's support of all that you do. There are a handful of great players in my mind growing up. Manny Mota was one of them, and of course the infield of the Dodgers, the infamous infield that we had. When I was, my best friend and I used to play catch with one another, and I would pretend I was Steve Garvey and he would be Manny Mota. And every time he would step up, and we broke a few windows in your name, but we did it very, very proudly. And today, I tried to take out Janice Hahn's name, but I apologize for that, Janice. Anyway, thank you, Manny, for all that you do. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for being here today. Felicidades.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam President. Manny, I also want to congratulate you. 35 years in baseball, is that correct? I spent 35 years in law enforcement, and I remember many times listening to the baseball games and trying to do police work at the same time and being distracted by home runs by Manny Mota and all the work that you've done. I grew up in Los Angeles. I know you've spent many, many years here in Los Angeles. A real tribute to the Dodgers, a real tribute to the people of Los Angeles, and a real hero to the baseball fans all around the world, because Manny Mota is a name that lives in lights, lives in starlight, for all that you've done for that wonderful sport and how you've led your life in a very positive fashion, a real inspiration to everyone. So congratulations, and to my colleague Ed Reyes, he's very protective about Dodger Stadium. Anytime we want to travel around Dodger Stadium, we've got to get a pass from Ed Reyes. Even if I want to go to the police academy, I have to get a pass because it's in the vicinity of Dodger Stadium. He keeps that area very, very well protected, and it's a real honor seeing you here today. So congratulations to you, and Ed, thank you for bringing him to us today in council. Thank you.
Manny, now it's your turn.
Now it's my turn. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank God for the opportunity to be here today. It's very grateful. 35 years in baseball. Thank you, the good Lord. I'd like to thank Mr. Ed Reyes, Mr. Alex Padilla, on behalf of my family, and myself for honoring us today. When I say honoring us, they're honoring the family, and they're also honoring the Dodger organization. I'd like to thank all the members of the LA City Council for the welcome and the introduction you are giving me today, and also welcome all the members of the Dodger family for joining us here today. My wife, my daughter, two of the grandchildren, thank you for the great support you're giving me. To the years. We enjoy as a family 35 years in this beautiful city. Great people. Great hospitality. We appreciate that. And we feel like we are part of this beautiful city. My wife and my family, been married, my wife been married for 41 years. And we have 8 kids. We are proud of all of them. They finished high school in the Dominica, but they went to college in California. So we are part of California. Of those 8 children, 7 of them born in the Dominican Republic, but the little one, Tony Mota, he born in the Glendale Memorial Hospital. So we got some rules on the blood of California. I'm very proud to be a member of the Dodger organization for 35 years. And I thank the Dodgers for allowing me to wear that Dodger uniform with a lot of pride and a lot of dignity. Right now, I'd like to thank Mr. Frank McCourt for bringing back the family tradition to the Dodger organization, and not only that, for bringing winning championship team in 2004 to the city of Los Angeles, because we feel the LA City deserves it, and we're going to be in top. We're going to be the world champions in 2004. We really enjoyed 35 years in Los Angeles. Los Angeles for us is the home away from home. The Dodger organization, right now, without a doubt, is the best franchise in baseball. And I think you agree with me, and we are proud to have in baseball the #1 fans, because you are the one who supported the team. Without your support, nothing will be possible. Mr. Reyes and Mr. Padilla, thank you for the request honoring me today. I'm very proud, very excited like Jose Lima, and the only thing I have to say is, God, thank you for everything. And as a foundation, we feel and we believe we create the foundation to provide service, community service, to help the needy people, and to hit the community where they really need help. We're going to continue our effort to touch every needy part of the LA City and also in the Dominican Republic. And as a parent and as a citizen, we got responsibility. We are the ones to provide guidance and orientation to the children to keep them away from bad temptation. That's the responsibility we have, because the children, they are the hope. They are the pride, and they are the future. Thank you very much for everything, City of LA, all of the City Council, the organization. And I'd like to finish with this word. God bless this great and beautiful nation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes, and thank you, Mr. Mota. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Han, Labange, Ludlow, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Weinstein, Padilla, 11 members present and a quorum, Madam President.
All right, council is now officially in session. Let me recognize Mr. Villaraigosa for an introduction.
Now that we're officially, well, I'll wait till the, if I could.
If we could have some attention, we'll wait just a moment, Mr. Villaraigosa.
Yeah. Martin, found a guy almost as tall as you, man.
He's a friend.
If I could have the council come back to attention and clear.
I'll introduce this guy who's the mayor of a small town in Jalisco. Yeah.
All right. At this time, let me recognize Councilmember Villaraigosa for a
Yes,
special
thank
introduction.
you, Madam President. I have the honor of introducing a very young and capable man, Ingeniero Carlos Rodolfo Garcia Becerra, who's the Presidente Municipal, the mayor of the town of Pozitlan, Jalisco, Mexico, with us today. So please give him a welcome. I got to meet with El Presidente Municipal Becerra today, and excited about the possibility of interchange between his town and the city of Los Angeles. Bienvenidos.
All right, Madam Clerk, let's go through the roll.
First order of business is approval of the minutes.
Mr. Smith moves, Ms. Hahn seconds. The minutes are approved.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Those are also approved.
Madam President, do you wish to take up public comment at this time?
Yes, let's take up public comment. Now is the time to hear from members of the public who want to speak to us on matters that are not on the agenda. So let me call forward at this time Dory Robinson. Please come to the center microphone, to be followed by Joy Little and Dennis Paul Friedman. Please line up behind the speaker. No, right there at the microphone.
If you don't mind, my mom wanted me to take her time and speak for her, please.
All right, is that Joy Little?
Joy Little,
All right.
After all this celebration, I hate to go to my topic. My name is Dory Robinson, and this is my mom, Joy Little. We've come here today to again draw attention to a major problem that continues to destroy the lives and health of tenants across Los Angeles County and across the state. The problem is toxic mold and the negligence of reporting it and the improper remediation and the treatment of the mold with pesticides. I know because I've experienced the medical, economical, and life-altering effects of having lived in 2 toxic mold-infested buildings in Los Angeles since 1998. The safety of the buildings and the prevention of this costly public health hazard is the responsibility of the County Health Department and the City Code Enforcement, as is lead as asbestos. However, I find existing laws are not being enforced and the value of lives of the tenants are being minimized. The buildings and the landlords are being protected. The tenants who complain and are diagnosed as being ill from the toxic mold and chemicals from the buildings are having retaliatory evictions filed against them with no support or protection from the county or the city. The mold that I'm referring to is not the happy mold that we've lived with all our lives, but toxic molds that grow on wet materials, inside walls, and HVAC systems, and are listed as biological warfare on the accredited Aerotech lab charts. The effects of the inhalation of these toxins are cumulative, and it does cause major health problems, as described in peer-reviewed papers that I can provide for you. EPA guidelines for schools and commercial buildings are being enforced to clean up these toxic molds that are considered dangerous at schools and offices. Why are the EPA guidelines not being enforced to clean up the same molds in our leased homes that we spend most of our time? In a letter from Senator Waxman, he advises that if you need to pursue a claim due to mold exposure, the federal EPA recommends that you contact your local rental board if the housing is substandard. To pursue a claim regarding the health department, you may contact the city environmental health department, and this is the way it should be. However, the health department has been deemed the lead agency for reporting mold in tenants' homes, and they're not structural engineers or plumbers. The problems is not the mold, but the leaks and water intrusion in the buildings that cause the toxic molds to grow, that the building inspectors do not investigate, report, or enforce the repair of when mold is present. Instead, the city building inspectors refer you to the health department for your mold problem, who in turn can only enforce the
Excuse me just a moment, Mr. Labange.
Yeah, what's the location of this building?
Well, I've had two. Which one?
Where's the location?
The last one is 130 North Weatherly. The first one was 426 South Rexford in Beverly Hills.
And where are they located?
One in Los Angeles, one was in Beverly Hills. My last one was in Los Angeles.
Let's talk to the Los Angeles one, maybe get a building safety official to help you. And could we have your name too when you spoke?
Yes, I would like to finish. I have been through every department, from the mayor's office to the county board of supervisors. Even my own council representative, who's not here today, has refused to help me and turned his back and walked away and refused my phone calls. So right now, I have a mayor's office that is telling me that the best help he can give me is a homeless shelter hotline. A senator gave me a soup kitchen.
All right, well, let me ask Madam President if I could. I'll be happy to help you at the ropes to give you some guidance, because I think we can get more specific to help you and the person
I still
with
think
you
we need
like.
to identify these problems that we've got to fix. Just helping me, there's many me's. That's why I really haven't addressed my situation, me specifically, because there are many me's living
I am going to
in
ask
cars.
you to conclude. We have a number of other people who want to speak at public comment, and Mr. Labange has
Well, my
indicated he
time
will
was
meet with you
taken
at the
up.
side.
Okay.
All right.
So that's it?
Yes, at this point. Let me call the next speakers, Mr. Dennis Paul Friedman and Lynn Small Friedman.
Again, I regret to bring a subject in a day of celebration to this great city. The woman standing next to me is someone who's been by my side since we're 13 years old. We've been married 35 years. We've been together for 44 years. I'm not going to belabor a point that no one seems to really want to listen to, but County Health Department is not enforcing its laws. The City Housing Department is not enforcing and is in fact violating some of its own statutes and regulations regarding toxic mold, regarding lead contamination. We recently had our bedroom windows scraped in a code correction. We subsequently had them lead paint tested at 1,200% above EPA hazard level. We now have lead paint dust throughout our home, which we are basically rendered homeless here after 12 years in Los Angeles in this apartment. We're in the Fairfax district. Our representative is not here today, unfortunately, but his deputy was present on one occasion when I insisted that a housing inspector go up to the roof to inspect a problem that has been unresolved for years despite many investigations and inspections. At that time, the inspector found that the flue to our water heater was sealed with wood, tar, and roofing material and had been for many years. This is not a normal situation. It is being allowed to go on. It is being covered over with hide-all paint, weak inspections. An inspector who most recently signed off on our building out of REAP. It took us 9 months to have that building put into REAP. And we're now told that the referral to the city attorney's office has automatically been canceled. We have had herbicides and pesticides put into our walls, into our lungs, and into our brains. We have certified documentation of mold spores in the walls of our building and in the air that we breathe, and we're talking not the good molds and not the good spores. I know this is not a topic that really can be adequately dealt with, so I've taken very good care of this woman for most of our lives.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. The next speakers will be Alfredo Vaquero Rosas, Gerardo Cardenas Moreno, Miguel Angel Perez, Camidio Santos Zapata, Elizabeth Vaquero, Ignacio Sigud Navarro, Eduardo Romero Zapata, Jose Moreno Bueno Nostro, and Juan Ezequiel Cervantes.
Sí. ¿Ya empezó? Muy buenos días, señores representantes de la ciudad. Mi nombre es Alfredo Vaquero. Somos los campesinos de la 41 y Alameda en Los Ángeles, que con amor y orgullo hemos creado un oasis verde en un desierto de cemento y metales. El amor y el orgullo quieren ser destruidos por algunas personas que no conocen ni aprecian nuestras raíces. Señores representantes de la ciudad, ustedes pueden dejarnos el amor y el orgullo de ser campesinos juntos en el oasis verde. Gracias. Alfredo Vaquero.
Good morning. My name is Alfredo Vaquero. Good morning to all the representatives of the city. My name is Alfredo Vaquero. We're the farmers on 41st and Alameda in Los Angeles, and with a lot of love and a lot of pride, we have created an oasis, a green oasis in an area. It's like a desert full of cement and metals. The love and the pride that we've taken and that we've invested in this green oasis has been taken away from us. It's been destroyed by certain people who do not know and are not familiar with and do not appreciate our roots. To all the representatives of the city, you can't allow us to continue with this love for the earth and with this pride, the pride of being farmers, and allowing us to continue being farmers together in this green oasis. Thank you.
Morning. Miguel Angel Perez, Los Angeles Land Use Coalition. It's very hard for me not to feel the words that were expressed by the campesino that just spoke. At the age of 5 years old, my mother worked the land, picked cotton. And I don't know if anybody here has ever worked the land and picked cotton, what it's like to feel the spine stick in your hand so people can wear clothes on their back. It's very difficult for me, for people not to respect the daily work that is putting food on the tables and clothes on your back and on your family's back. It's really important for all of us to respect what is being said today because it is the life's blood of humankind. Again, I will say, aquí estamos y no nos vamos, tierra y libertad. Thank you.
Thank you. The final speaker today is Mr. Lawrence Dickerson.
I sent this letter to one of the local newspapers for printing. Deals with the latest physical altercation between the Los Angeles Police Department and its citizenry, and I think it's something we all need to think about seriously. If you do a job that can kill or injure you, if ever you make a mistake, then you internalize all aspects of behavior that keep you from making that mistake. The things that keep you alive and well on the job must become habits, almost instinct. If you don't do this, you don't work for very long. Example. 50-year-old welder working on a high-rise 25 stories up surely knows how to weld, but that welder also and definitely knows how to stay up there. You are an officer of the LAPD. You were given extensive formal training in apprehending criminals and writing reports and using high-tech police equipment. On the street one night, a suspect jumps up and grabs your partner because you were a bit slow and soft during the suspect's apprehension. You call your partner's spouse. You and a few somebody else's sit around with a spouse in the hospital waiting room. You talk and think about what happened. You get chewed out. You write the report about it, etc., etc., etc. I'd imagine that that experience and the others in the field and their experiences would begin to teach you, maybe more than anything else, how to keep yourself and everyone on shift alive and whole day after day after day. To the extent that without thinking about cameras or viewers or the ramifications of everyone seeing what you do, you as a law enforcement officer will do what you've been trained to do. And the blame for any incidental side effects, collateral losses, or public outcry lies with those who've trained you. And they're not just the ones who showed you how to put on your uniform and use the equipment. There are also those who are out in the field with you every day doing unlawful things. They instruct and train our officers as well, but not so well. Moral of the story is that you can't blame your pit bull Spike for chewing up Grandma and Grandpa. Why? Because you trained Spike to chew up anyone who doesn't smell right, and Spike didn't recognize Grandpa and Grandma's scent. I've lived in Los Angeles for 45 out of the last 50 years, and I've seen some pretty crazy excrement, fecal material, ordure, dung, some people have another expression for it, on the streets of LA. And I might have been involved with some of it, so can we blame our police for doing what they do? I don't think so. Why? Because we ourselves trained them to be what they are.
Can I ask you to... Okay, thank you. That now closes public hearing at this point. Madam Clerk, let's go through the agenda.
Next item, Madam President, item number 1 is an item notice for public hearing. It's confirmations of assessment, street lighting district, and Council District 15.
There are no cards on that, so we can open the roll on item 1, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved.
And the ordinance will go over 1 week to July 14th.
All right.
Next item is item number 2. It's a finding of public convenience or necessity in Council District 9. A motion is required to either grant or deny the application.
Is there a motion from the council office? This is CD, it says 14. Is it 9 or 14?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it is in Council District 14.
All right. Do we have a motion from the 14th Council District? All right. It's
okay,
a motion to grant.
Yes.
Open the roll on granting the recommendation. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote. That is approved.
11 ayes.
Next item is, Madam President, items 3 through 11 are items for which public hearings have been held. Items 3 through 6 are ordinances.
Are there any specials, members? Items 3 through 11. Item 6 is called special by Mr. Zine. Mr. Garcetti?
9 and 11, please.
9 and 11. Any others called special? All right. Open the roll. Ms. Perry, did you have a 11? All right. Open the roll on the remainder. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved.
And the ordinances will go over for 1 week.
All right.
Next item is, Madam President, are items for which public hearings have not been held. Items 12 through 39, 10 votes are required for consideration.
All right. Let me open the hearing and close the hearing on those items. There were no public speaking cards on those matters. Any specials, members? 12 through 39. Again, items 12 through 39 are before us. Seeing no items called special, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are all approved.
Next item number 40 is a closed session. Do you wish to hold that matter on the
Yes,
desk?
we'll hold 40 on the desk.
On the continuation agenda, item number 41 is confirmation of a city official to the Board of LA Convention Center Commissioners.
All right. Could we have our commission appointee, Ms. Kelly Bernard, please come forward? Ms. Perry?
Councilman Parks asked that item 22 go forthwith.
All right. Item 22 will go forthwith. We now have a Convention Center Commission appointee before us. Would anyone like to address us? We have the recommendation of communication from the Chair of Conventions, Tourism, Entertainment, and Industry. Seeing no, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Madam President. I know we hope I didn't open the floodgates, but the question I have is, I know that in the Convention Center we work in cycles, and I've been able to learn that we are making attempts to go into quote-unquote non-traditional markets, so that we're not stuck on that, on what the mainstream calls out for in terms of how we deal with business and convention centers. And I just want to get from your impression as to how we can go into non-traditional areas that can bring people into the convention center, knowing how diverse the city is. We probably touch every country in the world. And each of those countries has some form of a chamber, has some form of industries, how we bring them here to conventions. Given the fact that many of them don't speak English, is there a point of view there that you might want to share with us?
Well, I know thank you, Madam President, council members, Councilmember Reyes. I know the Convention Center has been working very hard to expand and increase the number of bookings it has and not be reliant just on the events that are coming in for entertainment purposes. They're working with the local communities and trying to bring in more corporate type of events or community-based events to kind of take on more of the smaller events. You asked specifically about the international events and working with the different communities and different ethnicities throughout the country and internationally. The staff of the Convention Center is committed to doing that. Whenever we get a convention or an event, they're rated very highly by the staff, and so it's just more of increasing our customer service, doing as much as we can, working with LA Inc. To increase the number of bookings, not just the days, but just the types, and working with other city leaders to do that. So,
I just want to say thank you for your service. I know you get the highest salaries around in these volunteer jobs, but the amount of hours and commitment that's demonstrated is truly appreciated. I want to thank you for everything you've done for the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to address this appointment. The mayor has put forward a great candidate. We had an opportunity to meet in the committee, and colleagues, as you have before you, is a communication from the chair. I want to say thank you for a couple of reasons. One is this is not the first time Ms. Bernard has donated her time to the city of LA. Before you, colleagues, is somebody who has epitomized civic service and public support for this city. You mentioned a few things in committee that were important, as Mr. Reyes just asked the question about sort of the future of the convention center, and I know Councilmember Perry has been very active in trying to keep that venue one of the prime venues in the city of LA. Your focus on trying to help entice conventions to Los Angeles, but also looking at the management of the facility. We're challenged as a body here every day to deal with various things, but at the top of that is trying to promote this city as a place to visit from around the world. And so you come into this with a great head on your shoulders, and I had an opportunity to hear your thoughts and ideas during committee, but did want to give you an opportunity as a little bit of a service to my colleagues who may not have been there to pick up on where Mr. Reyes had taken you, which was just to once again ask you for, what do you see are the greatest assets of the convention center in the downtown? What are the sort of the challenges that you see in front of the convention center? And I know that Mr. Reyes asked one of them, but if you could just share a little bit more with the body.
Absolutely. The convention center is ranked highly amongst its competitors. You know, we compete head to head with Anaheim, San Francisco, Las Vegas, and to remain competitive and to do that, there's a few things that the convention center must do, and that is increase bookings by working with LA Inc. But it's also Los Angeles City. Councilman Ludlow talked about what are our competitive advantages, and that is the diversity of Los Angeles and the fact that people, you know, love to come to the city, and as much as we can do to support the city, make downtown a 24-hour destination so that when visitors come to the convention center and stay there, they can look out the window of the convention and see that there's activity and that there's activities bustling and other things going on, not just at what's going on at the convention center. Also, what would help in doing that is, of course, the hotel. When I talk about our other competitors, those other locations have a convention center hotel attached to the hotel, or to the convention center. So as much as we can do to bring that type of hotel to the downtown area and attach it to the convention center, I think we'd go a long way in increasing our competitive advantage.
Thank you, Ms. Bernard. And colleagues, I just want to also highlight the great diversity that we have on this commission. I think each and every one of us have taken at least one opportunity to push the mayor to ensure diversity on these commissions, and not only do we have ethnic diversity on this commission, but gender diversity, and as you'll hear from Ms. Bernard and others, some ideological diversity, and so we're anxious to see you there and appreciate your willingness to serve the city again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Support this wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Mr. Ludlow. Mr. LaBonge.
Follow Mr. Ludlow. Kelly, thank you. I've known you a long time, and your dedication, your great work ethic and I think it will only enhance the ability of our convention center. Just widen your great wings and try to put as much of that underneath them so that you could accomplish the goals, because we would like to see more. And I do stand, though, to support the development that may come in the future around the convention center, the transformation of that neighborhood, all the good things that happen with that, and all the mitigation it takes to protect neighborhoods and engage people in the right way. And I think it's just important to look at all aspects. I came up Figueroa last night about 7:45. I feel real good, Madam President. There was about 19 big coaches lined up all the way past the Bonaventure down, because I don't know who's in town, what convention's in town, but they certainly were in town. Who's in town? Who's from the convention? Who? Name? National Church of God in Christ. 20,000 people were here, and it was wonderful to see them enjoying Los Angeles. What was a blue sky coming out sunset as the day became night in the evening with all those visitors. So you got to champion that, Kelly, but I know your experience will lead to that. So do you have any questions of us?
No questions.
Okay, good. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Seeing no other council members wishing to speak, this appointment is before us. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. You're confirmed, and thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we will send that forthwith, Mayor, as well. Item number...
Next item, Madam President, is item number 6, and that was called special by Councilmember Zine.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam President. If I can have the representatives from the Police Department, the City Attorney's Office. This matter involves cyber cafes and a motion introduced with Council Member, now retired, Hal Bernson, and Councilmember Grace Smith sitting in that seat now. We brought about this motion because of concerns occurring in the San Fernando Valley in particular with shootings, crimes of violence, and cyber cafes. And the motion asked the police department to do an investigation and determine problems that were occurring and find out how we would resolve those. I didn't want to end up like Orange County, where a number of murders and other serious crimes took place at cyber cafes, and we wanted to be ahead of the curve, proactive, and put in some regulations. We learned that there were virtually no regulations in the cyber cafe industry. And if I can have the representatives from the City Attorney's Office Police Department, I know we have the detective who really got involved in this from the get-go, and if I'll turn it over to them to explain where we are in this. And I understand the Police Commission approved the ordinance, the working group that was put together with all the components. Lieutenant, if you can comment on that with the assistance of the City Attorney and your investigator, so my colleagues will know, and hopefully we can get this passed and into action to keep people safe in Los Angeles. Thank you. Okay. Lieutenant Deborah Kirk.
Good morning, Lieutenant Kirk, Commission Investigation Division. I have with me Deputy City Attorney Julie Raffish and Detective Kim Brunson of CID. Council members, this ordinance represents a culmination of many months of work with a working group that the Public Safety Committee directed us to form. And that working group consisted of zoning and building and safety, City Attorney's Office, Police Department, actual senior lead officers from the Valley whose input was really invaluable. Also people from the various council offices. We think that this ordinance strikes a good balance between community concerns and business interests in the city. One of the recurring themes that we noted when we started looking at this issue was the issue of juvenile truancy and curfew violations that were associated with cyber cafes. So if you look at the ordinance, many of the regulations specifically relate to the hours during which juveniles are not allowed to patronize cyber cafes, and those are consistent with laws already on the books in the truancy and curfew laws. On school days between 8:30 and 1:30, juveniles are not allowed in cyber cafes unless it's a school holiday or they're accompanied by a parent or guardian. There were regulations regarding the physical layout of cyber cafes in terms of lighting, signage. There's a requirement for video surveillance. So should an incident occur that results in a police investigation, there would be information that would help the police in resolving any criminal activity at the location. there are prohibitions in the regulations regarding completely private booths and concealed rooms and things like that, which we thought were important. All in all, we think that this strikes a very good balance. As you'll see, it applies to those locations that have 5 or more workstations that can access the internet. So it's clearly not designed to be overly broad or to encompass those businesses, maybe a coffee shop that might have 1 or 2 internet workstations.
And as far as the arrest that took place over the period of time that it was investigated, I understand 86% were juveniles and 93% for truancy.
Yes, that's correct.
Did you find that many of the locations are adjacent to schools, middle schools, high schools?
Yes, we did a mapping, and consistently, many of the cyber cafes were either in the middle schools or high schools, which is one of the problems, obviously, that resulted in the curfew violations and the truancy issues.
Okay, and I know that the industry was fully supportive of this with the working group that was put together. Is it going to be, and I think we introduced this at the Police Commission meeting, a yearly renewal on the licenses?
Yes, there is a yearly renewal requirement for all permits. Certainly, as part of our review of the history of a particular location, if there had been complaints during the year, that might result in either additional conditions being imposed on the business, or in severe cases, maybe our decision not to renew, the Commission's decision not to renew. The working group was involved with us from the very beginning. The industry was involved in the working group from the very beginning, and many of their concerns, we believe, are addressed in this ordinance.
I remember from the Commission meeting at Councilmember Smith's district, the representative from the industry was very supportive of the regulations and very much in cooperation with the police department, city attorney's office, elected officials, and they seem to be very aggressive in wanting to put safeguards in Los Angeles, and I don't know about other locales, to make sure that people are safe, that the employees are safe, the patrons are safe, and that there's not a negative impact on the community, because I know that that was an issue, the negative impact on the community with the cyber cafes, which were, until this point, as I understand, totally without any regulation in the city of Los Angeles.
Yes.
So I would ask that we would support this. I know the city attorney's office was involved from the get-go. Are there any other components that we need to put in here? Because I've read this a number of times. I think we've got it so well defined that we're not going to be challenged, that it will be legal, that it will withstand the business scrutiny. They want to run businesses in a legal fashion. We want to support that. Do you find any problems, or is it satisfactory the way we are right now?
We're satisfied that this addresses everyone's concerns, and I think at the Commission meeting, as you recall, the industry representatives were very supportive of the ordinance.
I think they commended you, they commended the detective, they commended the city attorney, and it was unique that we could pull everyone together. And I took a number of months to have this come to fruition, but with everyone working together, it seems to be a very good compromise, and the benefit will be the patrons of the cyber cafes, the cyber cafe industry in the neighborhoods. And if we have more cyber cafes established, they follow the regulations, it'll be a nice, tranquil, peaceful environment for all. So I would ask my colleagues to support this with an aye vote, and we can put this into place throughout the city of Los Angeles to show that we're being proactive and aggressive, having safe cyber cafes throughout the city of Los Angeles. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Mr. Smith.
Well, I want to thank Mr. Zine for picking up the ball with this and running with it and making sure it got done. I know Mr. Burnson started this all with a shooting in our district a number of years ago at a cyber cafe. And I think it's important to note that cyber cafes are not inherently bad or troublesome. It's the attractive nuisance that they are, that the kids have to go to some place to gather. We don't provide enough places in the city for them to go. And this has become an attractive nuisance because it's a place for them to gather. Then when you get them gathered there, gangs get involved, troublemakers come by, and it gets out of control. I think the Commission has done a marvelous job of defining an ordinance that solves that problem. Again, it's not inherent to the industry, it's just the nature of the beast that it draws people there late at night, and it's a place to go, and places to go attract problems. So congratulations to the staff. I think you've done a very good job of defining the problems that are associated with it and attacking that problem in a very good way, and, and for the most part, the industry, as Mrs. Zine has just said, has been very supportive of this. So this is a great opportunity for us to bring under control a growing problem, and it's growing very rapidly in the city of LA. So congratulations to the staff, Mr. Zine, and I full support of this. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
I also stand in support, but I wanted to ask questions regarding the trends and the patterns of these cyber cafes. I think it's very well known that there's a uneven level of education attainment in the city. We have higher dropout rates in certain areas. We have the whole digital divide issue happening in different communities. That being said, is there a way to determine where these cyber cafes are emerging, their growth patterns? Are they growing in certain parts of the city or not flourishing in others? Has there been an ability to look at those patterns? Please hold my time.
The numbers of cyber cafes has remained pretty consistent. They're mainly concentrated in the valley and on the west side, and then they're sort of sprinkled in all around the city. But when we first started looking at this issue, there was some discussion about whether or not a CUP would be required for these business owners who wanted to open up a cyber cafe. And I think that possibility has sort of kept the industry from expanding to the extent that it wanted to. Now that we've put that issue to rest and CUPs are not going to be required, I think that we're probably going to see some growth in this industry throughout the city. But we will be monitoring where they spring up, their proximity to schools, and making sure that there's appropriate enforcement so that we don't see a recurrence of some of these juvenile issues that brought this issue to our attention to begin with.
See, in my mind, when we talk about how we fold in communities and where communities can grow and become healthy and start bridging that digital divide, for me, I see an extraordinary opportunity. If cyber cafes were to go in places where the highest densities of kids are living with no school, very little options, and build up these, perhaps talk to the community development department, how we invest in cyber cafes in these areas where they're not going, where we have a dearth of youngsters, a way to connect issues of safety, public safety, education, these cyber cafes where they are desperately needed. And I'll put some more thought into this and think about how we start connecting those pieces, because it's a market-driven issue. There's a high demand for this kind of educational support, and we're not connecting the dots, and we're not making those relationships happen. We're not leveraging what we have. Imagine a senior lead officer can work in a community and use a cyber cafe type environment to educate the kids in the area and begin developing that whole educational base in these areas where they just don't exist. And the fact that you've observed that they're mostly in the west side and the valley, it's also consistent with this Tale of Two Cities relationship we have that we have to start leveling out. So thank you for your observations, and let's start talking about how we can be opportunistic in taking advantage of this technology. Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Madam President. How many cyber cafes do we have in the city of Los Angeles?
Go ahead. Detective Brunson from CID. There's approximately 30, and we haven't broken it down by bureau.
Sure, why not?
About 9 in Central Bureau, 5 in West Bureau, and 16 in Valley Bureau.
Any in South Bureau?
No.
Okay. So they have opportunities throughout the city. I just want to ask you historically, because I was thinking when you were speaking, Lieutenant, about being a youth, and you know, years ago pool halls were bad places to be in, and they came up with all kinds of rules and things of this nature here, and how it relates to today. Because I think the key that we must provide everybody is a good opportunity to enjoy life and to engage. And this is all new. I mean, I'd rather see all young people on sports fields or in dancing academies or stage plays and then pounding on computers myself, Mr. Zine. Maybe you'd feel the same way too, but because we're from a different era when we, you know, that what it was going out. You would be a Cyberman now. You'd be out on the sports field, Antonio, of all people. So, but these are new opportunities. So I want to make sure that I guess a goal I always want to try to do, that people could enjoy the experience. You know, we had Manny Moda in today, and we talked about old baseball games that I went to, and I remember the teenage fair. Dennis, you were probably working the teenage fair when I was going to the teenage fair. So, but all these little fun things you did as a teenager, I want to keep them fun. And I think these rules will apply to that. Is that correct, Lieutenant?
Yes.
Keep them fun to be a...
I think it bears mentioning that most of the cyber cafe owners do self-regulation. The vast majority of them don't have any problems. They take care of business on their own. But I think that these regulations, when we do have those business owners who, for whatever reason, can't take control of their businesses and they allow this type of activity to occur, it gives us the teeth that we need to go in there and make sure that the rules are being followed, the juveniles are not there when they're not supposed to be, that they're in school when they're supposed to be. Right. And I think this strikes a good balance.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Zine, I want to thank you because I know it was a challenge. I think it first cropped up in your district and you took it right ahead and were able to work with our city attorney and our police department and our police commission to come up with something that will be effective. So I want to thank you, Dennis, for your work on that. And thank you, Madam City Attorney and officers. Thank you very much.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam President. I understand what Councilmember Reyes is saying, and the fact that there's none in South Bureau. When we look at the ability to purchase a computer, they're not inexpensive, and looking at the people who need that education, who desire that education, whether it be in the east part or the south part of the city, the fact that cyber cafes are going where that opportunity is now, and if we can work with that industry to expand those opportunities where they can go to the east side, they can go to South Los Angeles, where we know the economic level is much different than in the San Fernando Valley, than in the west side. So we can work together to have them. Maybe we can work with the CRA, maybe we can work with some of the other opportunities to establish them in a positive environment where they're not going to be truant from school, but at the same time have an opportunity to have that computer. They can't all go to the library because we don't have many libraries with the computers. So the educational component is strictly there and clearly there. But what I want to do is make sure it's safe, and that's the issue that came up. When they're not safe, no one's going to go there. When we have a situation, as we've seen in other regions of this community, other regions of this Southern California area, where they want to shut them all down. That's not what we want to do. We want them to be safe, but we can work with the other parts of the city so we can see that population growth of cyber cafes spread throughout the city and not just be unbalanced. And as stated, 16 in the San Fernando Valley, most people in the San Fernando Valley can find that the libraries have them, the opportunities are there, but the other areas where they're not there, we need to somehow place them there in a cooperative fashion so we can work to help that happen. So I really appreciate that input, Ed, because I didn't really consider that aspect of it. And the fact there's none in South Bureau really speaks for itself. The industry is not going down there. We need to encourage them to go down there to help the people have that access through the internet, for the web. So all those ideas are good, and we will definitely work to make that happen. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. There are no other speakers, so let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
All right, the committee report action is approved and the ordinance will go over for 1 week. Thank you.
Next item, Madam President, item number 9 was called special by Councilmember Garcetti.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, this is item that we had before the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee for our LA Bridges 1 and 2 contracts for this coming year. Last year we made history, colleagues, leadership of Councilmember Parks. When I think the first week he was in office, Mr. Cardenas, members of the HCED committee pushed for an additional $1 million in funding for LA Bridges 2, so that we went from about $3 million to $4 million last year, increasing by a third the amount of funding that we pour in to those most important gang intervention experts. And when Mr. Ludlow and Mr. Reyes and Ms. Perry and so many of us talk about the tragedies that still continue to happen in our districts of young people losing their lives or being injured in gang-related activity, we know that this is such a sound investment, but that we still spend less than a penny on every dollar for law enforcement actually investing in prevention and intervention. This year, we found a one-time source of funding last year, colleagues, for this, for that extra $1 million. And we now have found about $400,000, and we've instructed as part of this, the CAO and CLA to look at identifying the last $600,000 that's remaining to be able to keep us at that historic high level. If we do qualify an initiative this November, either countywide or citywide, for half-cent sales tax increase, a part of that would be prevention and intervention. And I'd like to see us, as part of the language perhaps that we do internally, is double our commitment to our LA Bridges 2 program for intervention, which would be easy to do, $8 million of the $150 million that would be coming our way. We know we can hire 4 gang intervention experts for the cost of every one police officer. LAPD, Chief Bratt, and others are very supportive of the idea of obviously preventing or intervening before serious crimes are committed. So colleagues, I just wanted to call this special because I think it's critical as we look for funding that when we do get recommendations back, that we not roll back the momentum that we've made, so that our purveyors out there, those folks that are doing that most difficult work, ex-gang members themselves many times, going right in literally between guns drawn, sometimes between gangs, trying to bring peace to our communities, that we don't roll back our commitment to them. We are going to try to keep service levels as high as we can while we're bridging this $600,000 gap. I'm confident that this body feels very strongly about that commitment that we have made, and moving forward into this coming year, hopefully with a decent outcome in November, we'll have more than enough to not only match last year, but to continue that growth. But I did want to just flag that for everybody and recommend full support of this today, and really encourage the CLA and CAO to find that $600,000 or enough to bridge us until November at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. The committee report is now before us. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That matter is approved. That will be also sent forthwith.
Next item, Madam President, item number 11 was called special by Councilmember Garcetti.
Item 11 is now before us. I'm going to call first on Councilmember Perry, who's a committee report, to present this to us.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And we had a joint Environmental Quality Ad Hoc River Committee meeting on this issue, and this is an opportunity, a bond proposal for approximately $500 million to address TMDLs and to include an opportunity for green space and park development. And Mr. Deaton will give you much more in-depth detail, and I don't want to take away from his report. But we are on a timeline, and this is a critical timeline. Since I've been elected, since Mr. Reyes has been elected, and any number of you who are on the Ad Hoc River Committee, we have all worked feverishly to come up with new ways to manage our stormwater, deal with our trash issues, and to be creative and visionary in devising new ways to fund those projects. This is that opportunity, and I urge you to ask Mr. Deaton in-depth questions and to keep a very open mind, but to embrace this opportunity and to step up to the plate on our responsibilities as elected officials and council members at the local community level to bring in our communities fully and completely into the process and have a fully transparent process, but to be participatory and inclusive. But this is a good thing, and we should do this. And with that, I'll hold my timer. I'll come back around a second time.
Mr. Deaton, did you want to present this?
Madam President and members of the council, this is a result of a motion by the council directing our office to take a look at ways of funding our compliance with the Clean Water Act, and looking at the various alternatives. It appears to us that the best alternative is a bond issue that would address a host of issues, the immediate one being the trash TMDL regulation, also ones relative to bacteria, which would involve the diversion of some of the stormwater into the sewer system. But there's also a host of other issues of some of the lakes, urban lakes that we have, Echo Park, Machado, beaches issues, for example, Cabrillo. Also the need to either divert and stop a lot of the water from getting into the river, or to hold the water for a period of time and clean it before it gets into the river, so we can have a chance of conforming with the regulations that we believe are going to be coming down on the wet weather regulations. The We have very specific projects on trash and on the low flow. Some of the others are going to require us to look at alternatives, look at some data that will be developed relative to where our most problematic areas are. We have a project out in the San Fernando Valley, Sun Valley, where basically we're able to, if we work it correctly and use these monies, we can solve 3 problems. One, it's a historic flooding issue in the area. 2, if we're able to capture that water, we can prevent it from getting into the river or treat it. And we also have the ability, because of its location, to reuse that water and do a groundwater recharge. So there's a 3-fer for that project in that area, and also has the opportunity to perhaps use some of the transmission line greenway, not so greenways now, but make them greenways and use the water to percolate into the groundwater in that area. I'd like to suggest in the committee report a couple of changes. One is on item number 2. We have a specific approach on the maintenance. We would like to come back with a general maintenance charge based on the same criteria used for the stormwater charge that we currently have, but it would be accompanying, just as this is, accompanying the bond issue. And then in number 7, the establishing of projects. All those issues are ones in which the overall purpose of this bond is to comply with the Clean Water Act. There are ways and different ways that we would like to accomplish that, and those are outlined in 7, but the overall purpose is the compliance issue. And we need to, just as Councilwoman Perry indicated, and the clerk will reiterate, by the 14th of next week, July of next week, we have to direct the city attorney, because of scheduling issues. By the 23rd, the council has to have acted to put this on the ballot. So these instructions are to bring back next week the necessary resolutions, etc., in order to put that on the ballot. And perhaps we can accomplish it next week, but if not, no later than the following week.
Thank you. I don't know if Ms. Perry had anything more to add, but at this time I recognize Mr. Reyes, who is the chair of the Ad Hoc River Committee. It's a joint committee report.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank Councilmember Perry in joining us in this joint committee process. And the essence of that committee was to make sure everyone understood, all the stakeholders, both from the community, nonprofit agencies, the city family, that we are moving fast on this because we are driven by these deadlines. At the same time, we wanted to reaffirm that we are not doing any backroom deals. We're not trying to raise money to just fund pet projects, that we truly want to see the overall process that includes some strategic maneuvering that speaks to the complexity of this problem. So with that, I wanted to add these amendments that I believe are friendly amendments, but the first one would be to include the IRP, the watershed plan, and the LA River revitalization plan as guidelines to the extent possible for the selection of projects in addition to those mentioned in section number 7 of your report. So if you see in your report section number 7, this amendment would be inserted in that area. Number 2, based on community public input, reconfigure the categories to address the comments in number 7 to the extent possible. And to look at amending number 4 to include non-government representation that the City Council has, but that the City Council has final approval of review. So bottom line is maintain that inclusivity, but make sure that we prioritize the projects based on their ability to be delivered, that they reach the goals, and that we keep it within the context of a watershed plan. And as we are opportunistic in using Echo Park Lake, Lincoln Park, the other lakes that are part of the whole stormwater process, that we do everything possible to capture the trash before it gets into the ocean, which in my mind means using the Alley River as well as an opportunity to look at these stormwater harvesting techniques so that we can be inserting potential for natural habitats, looking at how we bring back the arroyo, the tributaries that feed into these river systems that merge from San Fernando, and they go all the way into the beach areas. This is a very complex challenge we have. This bond, quite frankly, will do only so much. A true watershed plan is a much bigger ticket item as we look at complementing what the river can do for our neighborhoods is part of the revitalization plan that's also coming forward. So I think the timing is great in making this happen. I wish we had more time to bring in all the stakeholders that have been involved in the Ad Hoc River Committee, but unfortunately we have these real deadlines that we need to meet. And like we said, yes, can I have a second on those? Thank you, John. And quite frankly, we're on a roll, but again, the test will be there. We'll have our checks and balances as we try to look at this holistic problem in a comprehensive way. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gruhl.
I pushed my button, but Mr. Garcetti, I'll go after Mr. Garcetti since
All right,
he was one of the
Mr.
first.
Garcetti, go at this time.
Thank you very much. It's very nice of you, Wendy. And thank you so much to both our chairs, Ms. Perry and to Mr. Reyes, for your leadership. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Ideally, we wouldn't be doing things with the timeline that we have. But that said, I want to thank the environmental groups who have been a part now of this very open process, and that wouldn't have happened without the hearings that we had. Obviously, the motion was an attempt to start that discussion, and I hope that it's not finished today, even with our instructions, because as we're drafting it, I think there's going to be some things that come back to us that we're going to have to make sure reflect kind of the broad consensus of not just the environmental community, but our neighborhoods and all of us as a city. I also want to thank Mr. Weiss, who seconded this motion as well, and for his strong stewardship of clean water here in Los Angeles. He's been somebody who has been a tireless voice for us, making sure that we do proactive things to get our water clean rather than fighting some of the regulations that have come down on us. And I understand our reaction as a city to want to fight them initially, but to try to take a different posture that not only inspires the city to act differently, but to hopefully inspire regionally cities to act together so that we can clean up our water basin and look at our watershed as a holistic organism, which it is a very important step. So I want to thank Mr. Weiss as well. And I also want to thank Mr. Deaton, because I think it's easy to rail against the process, but I think it reflects how far we've come as a city, that any process mistakes aside, that we are at a position where our CLA is really championing that we not only comply with this stuff, but that we get out in front. And I know that we've had discussions for 3 years where when it came time to budget time, myself and Mr. Weiss, and I know Mr. Reyes, once the Ad Hoc River Committee came up, we kept looking for funding to be in the budget, and this year we put $13.5 million in, which will be over a 10-year period, but that won't begin to address what we know is going to be at least $500 million compliance with the 67 different TMDLs. So all of that aside, let me just say a couple things. I fully agree that this has to accomplish multiple things, and I think this report reflects that we have to encourage governmental cooperation across different lines, that we have to require multi-benefit projects that do things from greening neighborhoods to cleaning up water supply to also making sure we clean up our storm drains and where they flow to as well. I also think it's going to be critical, too, for us to continue to underscore education efforts, because we know we can talk about where we are in the stream, but if we can prevent the pollutants from getting in the stream in the first part, I think our education efforts are so critical for that. And looking at a recent poll, which I shared in committee, colleagues, this might surprise you, but among likely voters, our #1 concern in Los Angeles was traffic. #2 was the high price of housing, but almost tied with that, 89% of voters said cleaning up our water here, our storm drains that lead to our oceans, that are in our lakes and our rivers, is the #3 concern. It was above crime, it was above education, it was above business tax reform. It was right up there as something that Angelinos care a lot about, and I think if we take this to the voters in a straightforward and honest way, let them know that it's not going to replace funds that exist there today, but that we'll design it again in for this is new funding that's not just for the building of capital projects, but for the maintenance of it too, which has been a problem with bonds in the past, that this is a smart and intelligent way of moving us forward. This couldn't have been done without Ms. Perry. I know when we had our hearings with Ms. Perry and Mr. Reyes that Juanita Tate was there on Thursday. It was the last time that we all heard from her publicly, and she was underscoring her strong support. I know we have a few public speaker cards, and we've already had a hearing, but I would move to just, I think there are 3 cards that we have 5 minutes of public comment to, if there's no objection to that.
Is there any objection to a 5-minute public hearing? All right, seeing none, let me call forward the 3 speakers who submitted cards: Shelley Luce, David Beckman, and Melanie Winter.
Good morning, I'm Shelley Luce. I'm the Science and Policy Director at Heal the Bay. We strongly support a water quality bond measure for the city, and we applaud the Council's actions in considering this bond. It will be a crucial step toward meeting TMDL goals for the city, and we urge you to ensure that this bond will succeed in cleaning up water quality. We agree with Mr. Deaton that the primary goal for projects derived from this bond should be to result in reduction of pollutants in our waterways. The other elements listed in number 7 are also very important. Multi-use and multi-benefit projects can clean up stormwater and serve communities who need parks and recreational space. It is a simple matter to build a ball field so that it can infiltrate stormwater during rainstorms when it's not being used for ball games, and that's just one example. We also encourage the city to create an oversight committee of people such as those participating in other watershed efforts like the Integrated Resource Planning effort, or the IRP of the city. These people have gained on-the-ground watershed management experience, and they're very important to these efforts. Projects derived from this bond should go through this committee first before they come to council, so that local stakeholders who understand their neighborhoods and their communities and who have gained watershed experience can ensure that projects will meet multiple community needs, including pollutant reductions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. My name is David Beckman. I'm the director of the Coastal Clean Water Project at the Natural Resources Defense Council. NRDC, I wanted to add NRDC's congratulations to the council for this proactive approach. And to be very brief, I certainly agree with everything Shelley Luce said, but I did want to emphasize that I think it's essential that if we promise clean water to the voters, that we deliver it. And the factors that are listed in the agenda are terrific and laudable goals that can be achieved, but right alongside those, in fact, predominantly, we need to assure that TMDLs are met. And if we don't do that, then I'm afraid at the end of the day, we will have some good projects, but we will have not knitted together a program that will achieve clean water, and that would be a real shame and a real waste of money. So I'd ask that you direct the City Council, direct the City Attorney specifically to make the fundamental criteria meeting the TMDLs, and in doing so, that you prioritize projects according to the 7 criteria so that those multi-use, multi-benefit projects are supported. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Melanie Winter, Director of the River Project. Again, echo what Shelley has testified, and David as well. I want to congratulate the council and the CLA's office on taking this proactive step. It's a long time coming, and thank you so much, Councilmember Garcetti, for moving this forward. We're looking forward to working with the city on these efforts and developing these projects. Clean water certainly is the overriding objective. The complex issue is watershed management and how to accomplish these clean water objectives in a multi-objective, multiple-benefit way that can increase open space and recreational opportunities for a lot of underserved areas in the city of Los Angeles. East Valley, in particular, is an area we can also increase our groundwater recharge and resources. So looking at these areas and these sites, prioritizing them through a watershed integrated perspective is really key. Councilmember Reyes referred to the watershed plan. I'm not really clear on what that is, but there are numerous sub-watershed planning efforts being undertaken in the city of Los Angeles. And I think that those sub-watershed plans need to be integrated into the prioritization process. If it is a plan or a project that has been identified through a sub-watershed planning effort, which is a consensus-driven process involving state, county, city, federal, and local stakeholders, then that kind of a project should be prioritized here. Again, I want to reiterate the real need to involve a Citizen Oversight Committee of people with some experience and knowledge on this very complex issue. And again, it's really terrific to see the city taking a proactive stance here. We look forward to working with you on this.
Councilmember Gruhl.
Thank you, Ms. Miskowski, and thank you to our speakers from the public who not only were here today, but also at the committee meeting. And as Mr. Garcetti mentioned, Juanita Tate was there again, reminding us of our responsibility to ensure that we have clean water. Colleagues, this time has come for us to improve our water quality. This bond is not only about clean rivers, clean oceans, and ultimately clean water for our generations to come. And we have to invest in that future. And it's about protecting our quality of life throughout the city of Los Angeles. The clock is ticking. We often say, we'll do that next year, we'll do that next year. And I know, Mr. Deaton, you have been a reminder for the last, at least for me, the last couple of years on the importance of this item and the support we believe will exist when we go out to the voters for clean water. That when you ask people about are they willing to consider this, they say yes. We do care about our water, we care about our parks, we care about our quality of life. And I think that those environmental groups, whether they have been with us or they have sued us to do things, are all on board today to say this is an important measure for us to put on the ballot. And as we spoke, just many of us a week or so ago before the County Board of Supervisors asking them to put something on the ballot for the people to decide, this is our opportunity for the people to decide if we really want to look at those TMDL mandates and to be able to say we are going to clean up our water. I want to thank Bureau of Sanitation, who's been working very closely with all of us to do that. I think, though, that we need to, and I know Mr. LaBonge joins me in this as, again, probably all of my colleagues, which is the importance of involving the neighborhood councils in ensuring acceptance of this. We need to, and we've learned from some mistakes before, not involving the neighborhood councils from day one. And I think we can go out, and there is a MOU agreement between 4 of our neighborhood councils. Actually, 3 of them happen to be in my district, where they have worked very closely with the Bureau on a number of issues within Public Works. And so I would like to, if my colleagues, Ms. Perry, Mr. Reyes, Mr. Garcetti, and others would offer a friendly amendment that they work, the Bureau of Sanitation, work with those 4 neighborhood councils that have the MOU with Public Works to create an outreach plan that would educate and outreach to all of the neighborhood groups, the neighborhood councils and businesses, et cetera. That MOU has been very, I think, effective, and Mr. LaBonge and I and the mayor had a press conference a month or so ago out in our district, which was the first step of having that participation. And we need to educate the public about how important it is to have a clean water in our city. And I think that those 4 neighborhood councils are not necessarily all the neighborhood councils we should involve, but because they've had that relationship with the Bureau, can then do the outreach to the other neighborhood councils, and we would encourage that and to begin immediately to educate people so they don't feel we're coming out in October saying we need you to adopt this in November. So colleagues, I think that this is, again, something that we need to do now. We need to be able to, I think the best chance of its passage would be in the November ballot, as Mr. Deaton has suggested to us. Thank you.
You need a second for the friendly amendment?
Thank you. That motion is seconded as well. Councilmember Hahn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I really just want to rise today and express my total support of this bond measure, my total support of putting this before the voters of Los Angeles in November and allowing them to decide whether or not this is the right thing for us to do as a city. It's clear our oceans are polluted, our lakes are polluted, our streams are polluted, our beaches are polluted, And we need to do something about that now. And it's clear, just since I've been elected for 3 years now, it's something we've been talking about. It's something we have studied and studied and studied. We've had task force on this issue. The time, I believe, is right to act now. In my own district, and we're all going to have projects that are going to be important to us that will come out of this bond issue, but in my district, as was mentioned by Mr. Deaton, Lake Machado at Harbor Regional Park and Cabrillo Beach are two that have just been on the radar screen for so many years. Lake Machado is a polluted lake. Just recently, unfortunately, I had to hold a press conference out there to say that the West Nile virus has now reached that lake, and that's because this lake is polluted, and that's because this lake has not been paid attention to, has not been cleaned up. We've not had the resources to dredge that lake. We've not had the resources to make sure that that was not a breeding ground for bacteria and pollution, and now, unfortunately, mosquitoes that carry that virus. We've got to return this lake back to the people who can enjoy it. We must return this entire recreational activity back as the jewel it once was, and this measure could really help to do that. And Cabrillo Beach, I sure hope that Cabrillo Beach is going to be a recipient of some of these bond funds. I am so tired of Heal the Bay giving us an F at that beach year after year after year. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because it's the mother's beach. That's what that beach is known for. That's the beach that mothers bring their small kids for their first experience with the ocean. And yet there is so much bacteria and so much pollution in that beach that it consistently gets a bad report card every year, gets a failing report card from Heal the Bay. That project alone, to clean that up, could cost $60 million. So to be able to leverage funds with the port resources, I mean, 50. We can Prop 50 money. This is a perfect example of working with other agencies, working with creative financing to finally clean that beach up for the people who use that. I believe we should put this on the ballot in November. I agree with what Eric said, and that was just early polling that we found out, that voters get this. This is an issue they get. They get the idea that the pollution comes through our storm drains. The pollution comes in runoff. This bond measure will allow us to put the catch basins, the screens, to catch that debris before it ever gets into our lakes and our streams and to the Pacific Ocean, which I represent. So I think this is a clear one for voters. They're going to understand it. They know that's a priority. They believe in having clean beaches and clean streams. But I do believe, Wendy, that was a great amendment. The initial polling says voters get it, but we need to do a much better job of educating neighborhood councils, educating neighborhoods, educating community, because this will be on a presidential election ballot. And sometimes the lower ballot measures, particularly municipal issues, sometimes get lost in a presidential election. But I think if we start now and we educate neighborhood by neighborhood, community by community, and all of us pledge to actively campaign to make sure this passes, this will be one of the greatest things this city council, in my opinion, has ever done.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Labange, to be followed by Ms. Mizikowski, then Mr. Reyes and Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dean, let me ask you a question. If you went out and polled all the people in Los Angeles and you said, what is TMDLs, what would they say?
Say what?
Right. Say what? Just talk about trash.
But if you ask them, do they want trash in the, on the beach, and do they want trash in the river?
Right.
Do they want bacteria coming down the waterways? They say no.
Right, and I support this wholeheartedly.
I can't remember whether it's TDML or TMDLs, but I know trash when I see it.
Right, no trash.
And I recall, if you will, Mr. Labange, a tour somebody took me on.
Right.
Down on the floor of the LA River in my car.
Right.
There's only one person that would do such a thing, and there was a little bit of trash there on the floor of the LA River.
A little bit more than we want, and they came from the street, and I think Mr. Garcetti started out beautifully by talking about how trash comes through the gutter, down the drain,
he hasn't
to the
driven my
big
car
storm
since.
drain. No, I haven't. Down the river into the ocean and polluted the ocean and in that circle. let me ask a question. There's 139 sweeping machines in the city of Los Angeles. There's 103 operators. It all starts in the curb. There's 100, not every street is swept in the city of Los Angeles. And what approach does it take to sweeping and the need for keeping streets clean in this issue that's coming before us?
Well, that's obviously a part of it. I think that also a part of, and some of the maintenance cost will have to be addressed on that when you collect the trash before it gets in the storm drain. That means there's more trash above ground and you have to remove it. You're going to have to do more sweeping. So there is obviously an issue there.
But I know there's obviously an issue there, but how are you going to approach that? Because I want to make sure, we could talk all about this here, but unless we get it in the gutter from the start, unless we get it out of the street, why not get it where it's most prevalent? 86% of all debris is within 1 foot of the curb. And that's a quote directly from Street Services.
First off, we need to provide protection that it doesn't get into the storm drains. We should, to the extent possible, do more street sweeping, and we should also look at providing ordinances and other restrictions on trash on the streets, and also provide better receptacles to collect trash.
Yeah. Members, I just want to say I am waiting from the city attorney, I believe, an ordinance on lowering the fine for littering from $1,000 to $100, and I hope we could be extremely aggressive, because that would help as well,
yes,
right, Ron?
Yes, it would.
I just returned from our sister city of Guangzhou, China, where it was absolutely amazing to see how clean, and there's 11 million people in the streets, how they kept their streets clean on that. And then I also spoke to someone who told me about they have fines too, where if people do litter, they give them a citation, and I think that helps to remind people to find it a receptacle. Even the trash containers had large areas, so for those who smoked could put their cigarette butts there as opposed to putting them in the street, and mention that. I was there on the day in Hong Kong when they had almost 500,000 people march down the streets, and a fella was telling me about how effective they are on that. Thank you, Mr. Deaton. Just focus on that street cleaning for me. Okay. And also, Mr. City Attorney, focus on that ordinance so we could combine to this to do a better job to help keep all rivers clean. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. Ms. Mizikowski is next, and Mr. Zine for the first time will be just before Mr. Reyes and Ms. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Members, as you know, we've all had to struggle when we've dealt here with issues dealing with TMDLs and lawsuits that are brought about what we are not doing right in the city. And when we look at the lawsuits and settle the lawsuits, we've always said we know that there's something big that we have to do. This is the something big we have to do. We have to go to our voters and ask them to help us build the systems in place, both for our rivers, the lakes, the whole watershed area. But I particularly wanted to make note of the spokesman from the National Resource Defense Council, who said in addition to all the criteria that we are putting in as that would have to measure against the projects themselves, we really have to be achieving the total maximum daily load levels that the Clean Water Act sets forth, and through the Regional Water Quality Board. And so I would just like to make sure that as we have advisory committees and the Oversight Committee and ultimately the council choices, that I would like to see our projects come in weighted by the criteria to say how much of each criteria they are going to be doing and achieving, because I would not want us to see picking some projects that might look good, might be environmentally sound, but aren't going to be doing the job that we need to do, because the bottom line is we have a Water Quality Act that we have to achieve. All of these projects, all the projects that we can all come up with, and we probably have far more projects that could get on a list than we will have funding for. But we really have to evaluate and think smartly of the projects that we choose that have both one, leverage capability, but more seriously, do the job that we really want them to do, which is take the trash out of our water stream. And that's going to be paramount. And I think we've just got to make sure that we don't dilute some of the strength of what we are attempting to do by not achieving it with the highest percentage goal projects that meet that goal. So I'm hoping that with the CLA and the Oversight Committee, as well as the council committees that will work on this, we can really work on the point system. So we will see ourselves, the array of projects and the ones that achieve the higher point value of meeting the goals that we're setting forth. We should know that so that we won't be tempted to intersperse some other projects which may not achieve the highest point value in terms of achieving the goal, to really make sure that and ensure that we are achieving the goals of the Clean Water Act. So I'm hoping that that can just be some advice to the committees and the CLA and the Oversight Committee as to how we would do it.
That would be fine.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mizikowski. Mr. Zine is our next speaker.
Morning, Jack Weiss. I want to acknowledge Heal the Bay that's here, that's been constantly keeping us on focus on this matter, on this issue. We've got one planet, we've got one ocean, and we've got a population that's exploding. I remember not too long ago, we had some heavy rains, and Tom LaBonge and I were in Griffith Park, and we were standing at the edge of the LA River, and Tom LaBonge, Los Feliz, we had breakfast at that little cafe where you have your photo, Eats, Los Feliz near the 405, near the 5 freeway. And Tom was welcoming visitors to Griffith Park in that area, and we were standing there at the side and watching all the styrofoam cups, and it was like an avalanche of styrofoam cups flowing down the river into the ocean, and it was amazing how many were there. It was thousands of styrofoam cups. Where they were coming from, I don't know, but it's like someone had dumped them in the LA River so they would flow down and clog the system and pollute the waters. It's a necessary thing that we need to do. From the valley to San Pedro, Janice was mentioning the West Vial. I know that in my neighborhood there's 2 of the crows that are dead, and it was in the West Vial, I don't know, but all of a sudden crows are dying in neighborhoods, and we as a society need to recognize if we don't invest in it, it's not going to be there for our grandchildren. So I strongly support it. It's given the voters the right, the choice to make the decision. What kind of quality we want. I was in Chicago recently, and we talk about clean streets, very clean streets in the downtown area of Chicago. We don't see that in downtown Los Angeles other than what the Central City does with cleaning up, but we don't have enough street cleaning. We don't have enough attention paid to it. And hopefully this will help with Ed Reyes's vision of having that LA River with residents, with the vision of the future, where people will be able to live along that river, where we will have a nice river, we'll have nice landscaping, instead of what it once was, just a dumping ground. And that dumping ground turns into the ocean, and then we go to the water and we wonder why it's all polluted and why the fish contaminated. So it's all cyclical, but I support it. Let the voters make the choice, and also, again, Heal the Bay for your consistent efforts and your determination and your perseverance. We won't forget. Obviously, you won't forget. I thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zine. Mr. Reyes is next, and then Ms. Perry.
Thank you, Council President. One, I do want to take a moment just to thank my colleagues, all of you, for really stepping up and looking at this square in the face. Many say because of term limits, we're not focused on long-term solutions, long-term dreams, but your actions today will demonstrate that we do have the big picture in mind in a long-term way. I just wanted to take this time to clarify my amendments and make a little bit clear for the clerk and our city attorney. And that is A, to amend number 1, to use elements listed in item number 7, A through G, to redefine details categories for the 5-year TMDL implementation. B, to amend number 4 to read to include creation of Citizens Oversight Committee and that the City Council have final approval over decisions of both committees identified in item number 4. And C, add that the Integrated Resource Plan, IRP, the LA Revitalization Plan, and Watershed Plan be used as guidelines to the extent possible for selection of projects. And this, again, is an attempt to fold in all of the hard work that has been noted, observed, digested by the Ad Hoc River Committee and the Environmental Quality Committee. It speaks to the fact that we understand that we are taking on a major project and that we need to be opportunistic in how we leverage our resources. So thank you very much.
Okay. Next speaker for the first time is Mr. Weiss, to be followed by Ms. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I just I just rolled in from beautiful downtown Inglewood where I'm on jury duty. And I was fortunate enough to get a lunch break, and fortunate that this is a lunch break in county court, Mr. Deaton. For those of you who are interested in the county's budget crisis, the person who was distributing our juror badges this morning put a bunch of pens up front so people could fill out their forms. And she said, please, please don't take the pens. We have absolutely no money for supplies. Please leave the pens on the desk. So anyway, that's the county. But here we are talking about raising $500 million. Thank you, Mr. Deaton. And I just want to mention that in my role as chair of the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission, I've learned a lot about the problems that we're facing here in Southern California. And I think the need that we have to have paramount at the top of the list, Mr. Deaton, and this is what I'm going to hold you to and hold the city attorney to and hold this bond to, is the need to put clean water first. That's what Ms. Misikowski was talking about as I raced up from the parking lot. And I caught the tail end of what you were saying, Ms. Misikowski, but that's the point of this. This is not pork projects. This is not pet projects. This has to be done with one simple, pure vision, which is the vision of clean water. There was an article, wasn't there an article in the paper just within the last couple days, you guys have already probably talked about it, about the extraordinary levels of pollution in almost every significant body of water in this state. It is just as big an issue today as clean air was 2 decades ago. This is our moment. Colleagues, this is, unfortunately, our issue. And it's the issue that this entire region needs to confront. I just want to confirm with you, Mr. Deaton, that you understand that it's my desire that we put the goal of clean water as the sole criterion first when we're figuring out which projects to implement and how to do them. And I probably know you've been asked this question before, and I know Ms. Misikowski was talking about it with you. If you wouldn't mind indulging me, I'd just love to hear your answer again.
I could think of nothing better. My comment was earlier that the overall purpose of this bond is to comply with the Clean Water Act. There are, in item 7, different ways of approaching that, and we'll be using leveraging funds. We will be using other agencies, i.e. the school district and the state and the county, and working with them on different kinds of projects. But the main criteria is to comply with the Clean Water Act.
I appreciate that. But the main goal, in my view, and I will keep fighting for this, needs to be clean water, because that's the right thing to do, that's the environmental thing to do, and it's really the only responsible way to spend $500 million of the public's money on cleaning up the water. You need to produce deliverables for the public, right, namely clean water. That's what people, if they vote for this bond, that's what they'll be voting for.
Or they're suggesting that you do not allow, you either stop the water by in either a beneficial use or letting it soak into the ground, rather than let it get into the river and pollute the river. In other words, you're not necessarily cleaning the water. You could be cleaning the water and having beneficial use. You could be just storing it in an area as it dissipates into the ground, either for groundwater recharge or for just eliminating the flow into the river. So you may or may not be cleaning.
I understand that each project and each needs to be evaluated independently.
You're either keeping the trash and the pollutants out of the river, or you're keeping the water out of the river, or you're keeping the water back, cleaning the water before it goes into the river. I think those are the three criteria.
I think I understand those words of Ron Deaton, the environmentalist, and
no, this is Ron Deaton, practical bureaucrat.
Don't say that. you killed the moment. All right.
There is no moment. This is something I believe, to coin or to rephrase what Jerry Dunphy, from Cabrillo Beach to Sun Valley is something the citizens of Los Angeles want to do.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our next speaker is Ms. Perry.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to ask a question, and maybe Ms. Gruhl can help me out. On the neighborhood councils that have MOUs with Public Works, are you thinking that in those situations they would be the primary community group with whom we can negotiate?
No, I think that because it doesn't represent the entire city. My concept was that they have had relationships with the Public Works and could help design how we need to go outreach to the rest of the city, and they should include them. They would really just be the first step because they've been involved and they have that MOU, but no, it would should the entire city. Because again, they...
Yeah, so in my district, and I don't know about Mr. Reyes, but I don't think there are any neighborhood councils that have MOUs with Public Works at this point because they're across the board in their levels of experience.
This was the kind of first pilot program they did with these 4 neighborhood councils, and so we just thought as they're planning their outreach that they should start with them and then have them help kind of what would be the best way to go out to neighborhood councils and involve the rest of the
when we
city.
do this, I know it's going to come back. Would you consider just adding language that says where applicable, or because if you've already got it up and running, that's great, but something like that.
Great.
Just so we can keep ourselves flexible.
And I think it would be interesting to get a report on what the MOU has been with our neighbor council, how it's worked, and where we can do it in the rest of the city, since this was just a pilot program they started.
Right.
But my main point was that we needed to have neighborhood council participation from day one and educate them now about what's going to be on the ballot in November.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reyes?
I just want to be emphatic, as emphatic as Councilman Weiss is, that I truly believe we can have clean water and still look at multiple benefits. And I just want to emphasize that, because we don't have to be so focused, it's clean water, because that is the purpose, that's the goal. But being advantageous with multiple benefits, we add much more value to how loud the bang of our buck can be. So I just want to emphasize that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reyes. We had one, Mr. Did you want to add something?
The amendments that Mr. Reyes wanted, you're going to...
Yeah, they've been seconded.
Okay,
yeah,
fine.
the seconded, and they've been circulated, yep.
Sorry.
We also had one late public comment card that came in because of an environmental event next door. So if there's no objection, I'd invite Andy Lipkiss and Lee Wallach to come forward. If you guys could just keep it maybe to about a minute each, we'd be most appreciative. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for making this allowance. We were at the Mayor's Green Ribbon press conference. I want to commend the council, the CLA, and actually the city agency staff for taking this bold move. It is really encouraging. It is time to move from all these demonstration projects and works that we have all been doing to scale up to really deliver the promise of clean water and more water and safe water for the city. So I want to echo 2 points. We think it's totally possible to mandate that clean water be a part of every move, but also that everything can be multi-purpose. The city faces 3 consecutive crises: water quality, water supply, flooding. We've demonstrated through multiple projects with the city that these projects can be built multi-purpose, that you can mandate that water quality has to be a part of it, but that you can also say they have to be multi-purpose. So our communities get greened, so our schools can be greened, so our people in our neighborhoods have hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lipkiss. And thank you, Mr. Wallach, too, for your eloquence. All right, colleagues, anybody else wishing to speak? If not, if we can please open the rolls on this as amended, close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That item is approved. Thank you very much, colleagues. To quote a Montana farmer who once infamously said, "We're all downstream." So no matter where we are along the river or any other place, this is a great move forward. Thank you. We would like to reconsider the ordinances before us today, colleagues, now that we have 12 members.
And that...
Yes, Mr.
What
Labange?
did the Canadian farmers say?
I don't know. What did the Canadian farmers say?
Well, you were talking to a Montana farmer, so what did the Canadian farmer say? I just thought the geography, the Canadian farmer would be higher.
He's downstream too.
All right.
Everybody's downstream. Thank you, Mr. Lavange. So to reconsider with 12 members those ordinances so they don't have to go for a second reading, Madam Clerk, if you'll please let us know which ones those are.
Those are items 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, if we can please open the roll on reconsideration. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, those are back before us. Anybody wishing to be heard on those? If not, let's open the roll on those items. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those ordinances are approved. And 3, let us send 3 forthwith, please. Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Next item, Mr. President, do you wish to clear the desk before going into closed session?
Yes, please. Why don't we clear the desk?
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Okay, those are posted and referred.
And that clears the desk for closed session.
Okay, that clears the desk. Mr. Zine?
Forthwith also.
Yes, we'll send number 6 forthwith as well. Okay. All right, we'll now go into closed session in accordance with California state law to consider item in closed session, and we will be coming back into open session shortly thereafter. Thank you. Okay, colleagues, we're back in open session. I'd like to call on the city attorney to read some language about the proposed vote on settlement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council will be voting on the following settlement as recommended by the city attorney's office. Petitioner will be applying for a design review process to install 2 roll-up doors at premises located at 1941 Colorado Boulevard, pursuant to the Colorado Boulevard specific plan. 2, after final recommendation by the Design Review Board and final approval of the Director of Planning or the Area Planning Commission on appeal, the Department of Building and Safety will issue permits for installation of the roll-up doors. 3, the area behind the 2 roll-up doors, approximately 36 feet by 40 feet, can be used for auto repair. 4, Building and Safety and City Planning will waive fees for the design review application and roll-up door permit fees. And 5, the appeal and cross-appeal will be dismissed.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. We have this proposed settlement before us. Anybody wishing to be heard in open session? If not, let us open the roll, Madam Clerk. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That settlement is approved. Next order of business, please.
And that clears the desk, Mr. President.
Okay. Colleagues, any announcements? Mr. Labange.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just want to say I was able to return from Guangzhou, China, where I led a delegation for our sister city of Guangzhou, and they sent our regards to all of Los Angeles. On the delegation also was the great David Lee, the former owner. Ed, David Lee was with me on the trip to Guangzhou, the great former owner of the General Lee's in Chinatown, and 84-year-old man who grew up in Los Angeles, was born in Los Angeles, and went to Lincoln High, and one of the leaders of our Chinatown community. But it was wonderful to see some of their traffic challenges, and to see, obviously, as I spoke of earlier, some of the litter challenges and how they deal with their trash, and also the Pearl River. I thought of you when I looked at the Pearl River, Ed, as you championed the efforts of the Los Angeles River. And the waterfront Hong Kong, I thought of Janice Han and the work that she's doing in San Pedro. So it was good to get there and good to get home. And but greetings from all of our friends in Guangzhou, a sister city of Los Angeles. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Anybody else wishing to be heard for announcements? Announcements of any kind? All right, if not, can everybody please rise in chambers for adjourning motions? Adjourning motions. Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, and I know Mr. Weiss will join me in this adjournment today. Many of you know our wonderful friend Miriam Jaffe. Her mother passed away this last weekend. actually Thursday, July 1st, after a lengthy and valiant battle with Parkinson's disease. Esther was a devoted mother and loved spending time with her family. She had an ear for music and enjoyed playing her clarinet and recorder. She also loved to sew, cook, and restore and collect antiques. Funeral services and interment were held at the Shalom Cemetery in Silmoran just yesterday, July 6th. Donations can still be made to the American Parkinson's Foundation in Esther Jaffe's name. Our sympathy goes out to the entire Jaffe family. She will be greatly missed. She is survived by her daughters, Miriam and Lisa, her sons Harold and Walter, her 7 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. So we all, I know, many of us would send our sincere condolences to the Jaffe family. And Miriam.
All members.
All members.
Mr. Weiss.
I'm over here, thank you. There's one story I want to add to what Ms. Gruhl said, and I know that most of you, if not all of you in this room, know Miriam and have known her quite well over the years. One thing you may not know about her is that her late father was a rocket scientist, real rocket scientist at JPL, and that was his career. He was an astrophysicist, and he devoted the last years of his life, and we're talking several years, to the Cassini probe, which is the probe that has gone through the rings of Saturn and is exploring the moons of Saturn. In fact, if you ever walk into Miriam's office, you will see this weird picture behind her, and that is Cassini with her father and the project team there at JPL. Well, her father died some time ago, and because space projects take a long time to make, and they take even longer to get there. But as fate would have it, Miriam's mother, who'd been ailing for a very long time, ultimately passed away late last week on the very day that Cassini reached Saturn. And so Miriam, because that's the kind of person Miriam is, any of you know her, she's nothing if not gutsy. She called the chief scientist of Cassini, and she said, you won't know who I am. I'm Miriam Jaffe. Dr. Jaffe was my father. I just want all of you to know that if you have any thoughts about him today as Cassini has arrived at Saturn, please know that my mother passed away as the satellite got there. And somehow or other, it's a very hard thing, obviously, in her family, but that's a very special and poignant moment that she and her brothers are ultimately quite proud of.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Are there adjourning motions, colleagues? If you'll just join me, colleagues, I don't believe we adjourned for the passing of Marlon Brando on July 1st. Marlon Brando was 80 years old, died unexpectedly on Thursday, July 1st at a Los Angeles hospital. He was well known as perhaps the greatest actor of his generation, winning an Oscar for Don Vito Corleone in Paramount Pictures' The Godfather, another Oscar earlier for On the Waterfront. And in his early years, he was best known for his role in A Streetcar Named Desire, a role that he created on Broadway at the age of 23 in 1947 and then played 4 years later on film in 1951. He started so many more films that it would take forever to mention them all here today, but he was quoted as saying, "The only reason I'm here is that I don't yet have the moral courage to turn down the money." Although at the beginning he was passed over for Oscars, he was widely proclaimed by critics later on in his career and embraced in box office and film after film. He will be greatly missed. 3 daughters, Rebecca, Petra, Nina, 3 sons, Christian, Miko, and Simon, survive him, and a truly great Angelino as well as actor has passed.
So on that too, I'd like to second that for Marlon Brando. It was amazing to see the tributes for the man who really cut a different mold as an actor. And I remember in my college days, we had to take Film 101 and to see On the Waterfront and understand it, and that type of acting. And then all what he did for others and tried to do and whatever. He could have been a contender, and that one line that he said so well. Mr. Garcetti, I think we all, and Ms. Hahn mentioned this to me, should join in memory of Eric Douglas, son of Ann and Kurt Douglas. And you know, Ann and Kurt Douglas have done so much for all of Los Angeles with their foundation. They're challenge of knowing I do know Peter Douglas quite well, one of the sons who lived in the 4th District and now lives up in Santa Barbara area, but the family, Eric was the youngest son, I believe, and that is a tragedy when anyone loses their child, and the Douglas have done so much for Los Angeles. I ask that we adjourn in memory of Eric on that, and
So you all
Ms.
members on
Han's
that too.
suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other adjourning motions? If not, Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll. Thank you, colleagues. This meeting of Los Angeles City Council is adjourned. Thank you.